rebuilding phase for them. And look at where they are now, competing, going into the playoffs, and got a taste of that, like you said, Ed. And now, potentially going up against the Dodgers, the reigning, world champs. This only makes this division, even more competitive.
Yes, because you figure Colorado can get better. San Francisco can get better. And of course, we'll see what happens with the Diamondbacks, but it could potentially be a tough division. You've got to get your rotation together. You've got to have pitching depth. You've got to have guys that can hit the ball. You've got to be able to have guys that can play defense. Guys have got to be able to step up and do everything possible to get a winning organization started. And the Padres are doing just that. Like you said, let's see if Clevinger comes back and he's healthy. I know that was disappointing that the Padres, they didn't really have him last year once they brought him over from Cleveland with his injuries and everything. But if Clevinger's back and he's healthy, man, San Diego is going to be strong this year.
Yes, I am not going to lie, a little scared to see our Arizona Diamondbacks and the Padres face off with that power that they're building. So it'll be a race, that's for sure, in the division. And of course, throw in the Dodgers in there, it's only going to get even more intense with that. But just to go back real quick on trades and deals and all of that sort, there were 13 arbitration eligible players that did not strike deals. So that's not bad at all, I don't think. So it could be more, being that baseball is really cutting down on their spending for making deals with players and, trying to, I know a lot of these players were trying to get a little bit more or higher on their deals or trying to get more money or whatnot. And then just to name some of these players, it does surprise me that these did not strike any deals. And these are Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, Ryan Yarbrough, are the three that do surprise me to not have reached a deal of the 13 players.
Yeah, those are three big names who had major contributions to their teams, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but Joe, that's
and playoff teams too.
Yes, playoff teams, but it's the times that we're living in. Teams, as we talked about, they're pinching pennies and they're keeping those pocketbooks closed as much as they can because they don't know what the future holds as far as if fans are going to be allowed in, how many fans are going to be allowed in, parking and concessions and all this other stuff. That's a lot of money lost for every single baseball team if fans are not in there. And of course, they've got to, again, look at the bottom line, which is the almighty dollar and how much money they can make. And if they can actually come close to turning a profit, or if they don't, how much money are they expected to lose this year? Because I don't know if any team's going to turn a profit if there's no fans in the stands, and if there's no fans in the house, then nobody's going to turn a profit.
Yeah, we all know that not only MLB but all major leagues they lost money, a lot of money.
Yes.
And I know that each of them are trying to recoup that or trying to bounce back from it or trying to find a way to balance that out. One of those is through deals. But hopefully this year is a little bit of a different story and they're able to kind of have a little bit more of an in and not have that much of a loss as they did with the previous seasons. But we all know this pandemic is a fluid situation. We don't know what holds in the future. Hopefully it comes to an end sooner rather than later. But we all know, we've talked about it and said it time and time again, money talks.
And you saw it come up with the NFL. You saw they got every single one of those 256 games in. They did everything they could to get all those games in, Joe, and they made it to the finish line. And we saw how quick the NBA was wanting to get a season back on again, a 70-game season, which is why they moved everything up to December 23rd, and they wanted to get as many games in as possible because they were slated to lose close to $1 billion if they didn't get a season going on. So these major organizations, NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, they're trying to get as many games in as possible. The NHL is 56 games this season, so they're doing everything they can to get as many games in as possible to try to scrape up some semblance of a season and try to make some kind of money if you're these major sports franchises.
Do you see what we're seeing? We did see the NFL be able to pull off an entire season, but it's different. So seeing what we've seen so far and what's been occurring with NBA and NHL bringing a shortened season and MLB, do you see it realistically that they will have or close to having 162 game season? Realistically,
no.
With as many games as they play and how much traveling that they do, because I understand the reasoning on wanting to do that, but realistically, I do not see that happening.
I don't either. That's a lot of games, Joe. And as you mentioned, there's so much travel involved with all these teams, going cross country for these cross country trips. And like they did with the Toronto Raptors. Toronto is they're playing down in Florida. They're not even playing up in Toronto. So what's the situation going to be like with the Toronto Blue Jays? Are they even going to play in Toronto? And what's the MLB's approach to teams actually traveling into Canada and vice versa with the Toronto Blue Jays traveling into the United States? What's that situation going to be like? Would they even attempt to have Toronto play back in New York again, in Buffalo, like they did during that 60-game season? These are all questions that I'm sure Rob Manfred and all of his higher ups are trying to figure out what they're going to do. But I don't think they're going to get 162. And the pandemic is crazy, and it's only going to get worse. And there's so much uncertainty, especially with all that travel. That's a lot more travel than NFL and NBA teams and NHL teams are accustomed to. That's a lot of travel, Joe.
It is a lot of travel. And one of the things I don't know, and I think would be a good idea, but I can understand why MLB doesn't want to would probably want to pursue it. And maybe the Players Association would not want to agree to it. But we have spring training. It happens each season, prior to each season. It happens in Florida. It happens here in Arizona. And we see how, it's the teams, they're split in half and they play on these, different stadiums. Being that the situation that we are in the pandemic and to eliminate travel, you're already here or you're already in Florida. Why not, just thinking out loud, just have the season happen with, in these two areas, in these two states. Maybe I'm sure that MLB can come up with a plan or a way to do this, having those games being played in Arizona and in Florida. You do this for spring training. Why not do something similar for the regular season? If you're trying to have as many games close as possible to 162 for the season, or like they did in the playoffs when they had games in San Diego and they had games in Arlington. Just find some centralized cities and just have a bubble kind of format. That'd be a lot of games to play in a series of ballparks if they try to do 162. But if that's the safest course of action, then that's a good idea, Joe. But you're right. I don't know if the MLBPA would go for that and the players would go for that as well. But that's definitely an idea to throw out there. Because I'm just thinking all these cross-country flights these teams are going to be going on, and they're going on these 2-week road trips. I mean, disastrous things could happen. Right, and then we're in a peak. We see how the situation that it is right now with COVID, and would be just not good to see something just spike up or something happen that we don't want to see.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking what better way to do something as that. And, I think I brought it up in the past, but I'm bringing it up again. And, maybe MLB can reconsider, instead of doing all the travel, they were able to pull it off for a shortened season, but for a long season that they're planning, I really don't think it's going to be realistic.
Me neither. And just heaven forbid, not to disrespect any of the lower rated baseball players, not the less popular players, but say like a Fernando Tatis Jr. comes down with COVID, or Mike Trout, right. My goodness, just say like Clayton Kershaw or Mookie Betts or somebody like that just comes down with the virus, and it just outbreaks in your baseball team, like we saw with the Miami Marlins and we saw with the St. Louis Cardinals. Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. That is something Major League Baseball definitely does not want to have happen, because that'd be a major mark against them.
Yeah, and that's something exactly, and you totally read my mind with that. That's something that you completely want to try and avoid as much as possible. We know that's inevitable, and it probably might happen one point or another, or you're going to have some type of outbreak with the team, but you want to try and avoid a Miami Marlins situation. So we'll see as we get closer to the season if MLB decides to make any changes to the game schedule and how spring training plays out. So right now is just a wait and see situation.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that'll be a litmus test, Joe, to see what happens in Florida and what happens here in Arizona. And if there's an outbreak on any of these baseball teams, that'll be a kind of a good barometer to see what they do for the regular season.
Yes, definitely. And with that conversation, it brings me to talk a little bit about college baseball for a second. And at that, the spring training coming to a start here soon. We have also college baseball here kicking off in the spring. So here is something the SEC decided. The SEC directors approved a normal baseball season structure for the spring 2021. No change to the conference schedule, and increased travel roster from 27 to 30. What do you think about that, Ed?
That's a major gamble, isn't it? That you're going to try to go ahead with the full season, and I'm sure that's probably subject to change, of course. Right?
Yeah, since talking baseball structure, games, and increased games, and we're talking again is roster and travel. Yes.
They increased it to 30, but that travel is something else. And the way this devil, as PLR describes it, the way that thing travels and does its thing, anything could happen, and any of these teams can be impacted in a major way, all in the sake of trying to get a full season of baseball in.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the point where you try to stop banging your head against the wall because you're really trying to force something, instead of trying to be smart and diplomatic about this thing, and try not to impact these kids and their families? Look out for the kids first, instead of the sake of your conference. The kids are the most important thing.
Yes, their kids and their health.
Yes.
Most and foremost.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, and I know this is something that kind of came into play, or did come into play when the football season was kicking off. And, the same thing, the games and travel and, a lot of things came into play. And some of the conferences or, Pac-12 or SEC, they all ended up, changing or taking, back what they had initially had planned for the season. So now we have here baseball season coming to, to start here soon. SEC, will this set the tone or a standard for all the others of how, they're going to want to structure, Or, okay, hey, the SEC is going to go ahead and do it. Why shouldn't we do it? Or is it going to be more of, oh, the SEC is doing this? And is it going to be more of like, oh, okay, let's do something different than what they're doing? Because we all, saw what happened for